Yeah, so that's not an issue far as the food over here. In case there's the supermarket is way down on Patterson. So,
Hmm.
you know, so but that they have access if it was an emergency far as anything to get some food.
Okay, that's good
Yeah.
to hear.
Okay.
You all set, Chris?
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all. Let me tell y'all real quick.
Yeah.
I just spilled coffee all over myself. It was bad. It was bad. In the car, on the way here live. It's an overshare maybe, but it's all good. We here, we live, we present. It's a wonderful day. Like I said, I just left a wonderful training that I was supposed to leave from at least 15 minutes ago, so I could still rush here. We made it one piece, no accidents outside of the dropping the coffee. Good thing that it wasn't real hot. I mean, yeah, y'all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's the overshare. Okay. Yes, to the point you made, Miss Burton. And I'm expecting some visitors to join us today. And I realized, like I mentioned earlier, we probably had an issue with our two different Zoom codes, and that's 100% my fault. That's an issue that we do not look to have moving forward. So, but I'm taking the blame today. Me and Kristen talked a lot about a whole bunch of different things, and I was loving this term, food deserts, food desert, and even playing off a name that one of the companies I knew, talked about having a oasis in the desert. And so Kristen was just not with it, y'all. She wasn't. And it was a little funny. And I was just like, I didn't want to. She's like, okay, if you want that to be a name, I'm like, no, because if you feel a reason that it shouldn't be, you gotta let me know. I like when we agree. And so that's when she went deep into explaining the Arizona situation. And it resonated with me because my wife's grandparents just moved from Arizona and they moved out. They was in the desert. And so I visited them one time and yeah, they had to drive an hour to go to the grocery store. But for some reason they liked being wherever they was at. You know what I'm saying? And it was very hot. It was very deserted, but they liked the desert. I'm like, maybe, and it's a lot of elders who stay there too, at least where they were at. So I'm like, I guess a lot of older people, they just want to warmer climates is better for their congestion. I don't know. I couldn't understand it. But it made sense. And then it's like, okay, well, to not beat the to not beat a dead horse, right? Because in Winston-Salem, by definition, we got a lot of places that are 2 miles out, right? From healthy food. Food line might be right there. And so if you go ask the average citizen in many of our communities who are most affected by these situations, it's like, okay, well, we can go to food line when we want to, so we don't see that as big of a problem. And part of it becomes, well, what's in food line? Why is there a distinct difference between what's in food line and what's in Whole Foods? What's in food line and what's in Trader Joe's? And so maybe part of our desert, as we continue to talk, it didn't necessarily deal with the fact that there was like, if I can go to the corner store, for instance, which that's what I grew up doing. I could not get to no grocery store, but I can get to that corner store. And they fortunately or unfortunately had everything we wanted. What did we want? I wanted some noodles and noodles when I was hungry, ramen. I wanted some potato chips. Back in the day, they used to be 25 cents. I don't know. And I wanted, I, I was in Chicago and I introduced this word to my in-laws. They never heard of it. We used to like quarter waters. Y'all ever heard of a quarter water? Anybody? Yeah, I guess that was a woman. The little hug juices with the silver cap on top, we call those quarter waters because you can literally go in the store and buy them for a quarter. So with $1, you can get a quarter order, 2 if you was really thirsty. You can get a bag of chips. You can get a snack cake. And maybe you needed 7 cents to add on top of that. And that was life. And so I think we would be naive to think that, okay, especially the people who don't have access to financially or the driving ability, that this is not what they're happening. Coming out of the classroom, for instance, we had a lot of students who would go to the store before they came to school. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. They got a large bag of Takis. I couldn't afford that. We had 25-cent chips. They got the large bags, $2 Takis, or what's these things? Flaming hot crunchy Cheetos. You know, I used to frequent some of those back in the day too, before I really knew the ingredients. And so, they're eating. They are eating something. A lot of people in our communities are eating something. A lot of people in our communities, even if you go to Food Line, most of the middle aisles are filled with these things that aren't the best for us. And even when we look at what we have in the fruits and vegetable sections, we got to question, was those things organically made? And many times they aren't. So many times it's still detrimental to our health. So when it comes to getting those things that aren't detrimental to our health, when it comes to getting those things that are best for us, do we have ready access to them? And so, no, yeah, we in a food desert by definition, but more importantly, part of this conversation evolved into being food sovereign. And so going into the definition of food sovereignty, let's see if we can pull it up. Kristen, do you have it readily available? Because I'm still getting myself together.
Yeah,
and I
yes.
apologize again, guys.
So the definition of food sovereignty from the National Family Farm Coalition is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. It puts the aspirations and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies, rather than the demands of markets and corporations. So that's I don't know if I want to use the word heavy, but it is a more complicated or nuanced, that's a better word, nuanced way of looking at our food systems, what's available to us, even in an urban environment. I was aware of this issue of food sovereignty, again, going back to working and living in rural Arizona, and especially with different indigenous populations. So I could see that very clearly in that setting. However, in our conversation and brainstorming about today's discussion, there are some parts of that are applicable here in North Carolina. So there are 6 different areas related to food sovereignty. What I'll do is first I'll share the link with you all in the chat. That way you're all able to see it. There you go. There are those 6 pillars of food sovereignty. And while maybe not all of the pillars necessarily apply exactly to what we're observing or discussing today here in Winston-Salem, it's definitely, there are a lot that we can think about and be a bit more mindful of in this conversation. North Carolina has a really wonderful climate in that there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of growing. Arizona did as well, just when it wasn't 120 degrees. That was not so sustainable. But for us, we're kind of like in the middle, it's not too hot and it's not too cold outside of whatever's happening this week. That being said, we have quite a few farmers that are local. When we think about our local farmers markets like Cobblestone, the one that's on the fairgrounds, We do have access to a number of local farmers with different, produce and flowers as well. So with having so much available within our county and within our state, how are we still grappling with this access to fresh food, right? So I'm curious if any of you have clicked on that link and kind of just scrolled through to see what's on there when we're talking about food sovereignty. And I see that we have others besides our resident leaders, Miss Angela Levine or Levine. Would love to hear your perspective, your thoughts about this, and get this conversation moving. And of course, make sure we narrow it down to what we're experiencing and what we're observing here in our communities. So feel free again to unmute and share your thoughts.
Kristen, I'm happy to go if you'd like. Hi, everyone. I'm here from time to time, trying to stay connected. I live here locally. And one of the experiences I had volunteering with Help Our People Eat connects to number 5 on the 6 pillars of food sovereignty: builds knowledge and skills. What I found when we were delivering meals and we were giving bags of fresh produce to the parents while we were giving meals to the children is a lot of the parents did not recognize the fruits and vegetables that are in the bags, and they had no idea how to cook them because maybe their generation had not grown up with a lot of those kind of foods. I mean, Christopher's already talked about going to the corner store and buying the prepackaged things. And so then all of a sudden, if you're confronted with a sweet potato, you might say, what am I supposed to do with this? And so I do think there is a role to play in just the education piece of how to prepare these kinds of foods, because if you don't know how to cook it, then you're not going to maybe go to that section of the store. You're going to be buying from sections where you can just heat it up on the stove or in a microwave and you're done. So that was one of my experiences.
Thank you so much, Miss Angela. So in case, and we might be familiar with her, Help Our People Eat, located in the Boston Thurman community. I participated in a run with you guys a couple weeks ago. My legs still hurt. No, I'm joking. No, seriously though, me and Kristen, we visited the facility with Miss Diane Fitzhugh. And one of the things that I really love that you guys have is the classes. And so the classes, and I would say it was, to me, culturally enriching food. So it's like, okay, what's a lot of things that, our cultures, our indigenous cultures, many of us have produced, have eaten, that's already been historically agreeable to our stomachs. When I said that that ramen, I asked Kristen yesterday, I was like, Kristen, do you know what hamburger helper is? Do y'all know a hamburger helper? I know y'all know a hamburger helper. Kristen didn't know what hamburger helper was. And that's a luxury. Go ahead, Ms. Burton. You wanted to say something?
No, I know what hamburger helper is. It's an affordable meal, but it is a luxury.
It's a luxury.
When your money is tight and your change is strange, it's a luxury. That's how I'm gonna say it.
Yes, ma'am. That was the point, with the hustle and bustle of life, with the gradual shifting of cultures to working, especially, and I don't want to put it like women working, but yeah, women working. That's who was the kitchen protectors, the kitchen knowledge, the recipes for the most part, even though a lot of chefs are men. Hey, I mean, we depend on women, especially when you're a child, to understand some aspect of health, some aspect of cooking. And we have witnessed at NBN, so it's like, not to be a Johnny come lately, which is like, oh, we just want to talk about, no, what have we witnessed in dealing with these topics? we witness hope, we witness different organizations who have different things that have been done, and for some reason maybe that energy left, even though that's the absolute best thing, health wise for the people involved. And it's like, why has that happened? So yes, the Miss it's Levine.
It's Levine. Thank you
Levine.
for
Yes,
asking.
ma'am. Absolutely. Would you like to expand a little bit more and tell us about your cooking classes program out and some of the
Well,
stuff you guys do?
it's not mine. I actually have just been a volunteer
Mhm.
with them, from time to time. But I do know that they offer cooking classes for free to community members who would like to come and learn more about preparing these different kinds of meals, and to how to prepare things that as you said, are culturally appropriate, but also are healthier, and just learning how it isn't super complicated sometimes to do that, but you've still got to have the skills and some of the knowledge to even be able to tackle it, as well as the confidence, I think, as an individual, that you're going to buy this and you're going to be able to cook and prepare it, and it's going to be something everybody's going to eat. So
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And so, yeah. So what about timing? Is it a myth that it takes more time to cook healthy foods? So when we get these vegetables and we learn a little bit, and anybody can answer this question, and I'm probably the least experienced cook here, maybe. But at the same time, what do y'all think? Is there a myth that it's a issue with how long it would take to prepare healthy meals?
Chris, I really don't think it. This is Gerald traffic,
Yes,
North
ma'am.
Dakota State's residence leader. I'm still driving, so I'm just going to talk shortly. I don't think it really takes a lot of time in preparing healthy meals, but it does depend on what it is you're preparing. But overall, I don't. I really think it's a quick fix for me, and that could be because I'm an experienced cook, and not a lot of people are. Well, some people are not. And if they are unfamiliar with maybe the vegetables or what they're preparing, it will take some time to prepare it because you have to know what it is, how do I prepare it. But for me, it's, as we could say, it's a piece of cake. However, I enjoy cooking, and I do enjoy cooking for others. And I do like to introduce new foods to others so they can appreciate the healthy foods that's available for them. And this is something that we do, especially for elderly people who can't really get to foods that are available in the communities, like the food pantry, the supermarkets. So therefore, we have to bring the foods to them. Some of them are not, some of them are unable to prepare the food for themselves. So therefore, I take the responsibility, and just me, because of health guidelines, to prepare foods for them, and because of dietary needs for them. But to sum it up, I just think preparing healthy food is pretty quick.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Miss Travis, Miss Sandra, Miss Thomas.
Well, to me, I don't think it's a myth. I think it's a lack of education of exposure to how to fix food.
Yes, ma'am.
And fixing healthy food, to me, doing it the old way, as your grandmama used to do, braise a whole lot of food all day long, greens or what have you, right? There's another way of cooking it, and it's healthier and it's quicker.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just a matter of educating people. And I have young friends, and they said, well, I don't know how to do this. And I said, it's simple. To me, I don't have time. I say roasting vegetables is the quickest method. It's healthy and it's quick.
Mhm.
and it's delicious.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's just a matter of people not knowing, okay, how to cook. I like to cook, so it's not a problem for me. And my
Yes,
mama
ma'am.
was a good cook, but I've modified stuff that she did because of time.
Mhm. So, okay. One of the things that, and I wanted to, I guess, get a representative. We talked about. I don't have my notes with me. Miss the former executive director of NBN, Miss
Paula.
help me. Yeah, Miss Paula McCoy. They started a grocery store right off of Liberty Street. Y'all familiar with the grocery store? And for whatever reasons that we're still learning. And the beautiful thing when you look at me and Kristen, young folk, really learning the city, right? They'll try to come here acting like we know anything, everything. I've been here for a nice long time, but it's not where I'm originally from. But one of the things my pastor used to always tell us, even when he was my college professor, is like, if you, Miss Travick, Dr. Eversley, if you think you're the first one to think of something, you're not. It says, so with that, as we look at issues, it's like, okay, what has already been done? Who has already been doing? If this thing has been an issue, there have been people who have tried to tackle it. So that's why that the food desert thing turned into food sovereignty. And with sovereignty, it was like, okay, what about the education around this process? And the education around healthy living. And I seen a young girl in the news who basically went to the hospital for eating too many of those hot Cheetos and hot chips mixed with the grape Kool-Aid and all that high fructose syrup. That really happened. She had ate way too much hot fries. I think that was the snack of her choice. But it's like, okay, what all right. I'm gonna stop. I'll come back. Kristen, your hand was up. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, it was just to I guess piggyback off of what we heard from Ms. Geraldine and Ms. Sandra, education. And I'll say that for me, it was that job that I had in Arizona because I had to do those cooking demonstrations. I had to read USDA guidelines and different do kind of like a fruit and vegetable show and tell with like elementary and middle school kids. That was me learning for myself a lot of things that I didn't know either. And especially like working with indigenous groups, like it wasn't in the same situation here where I'm not, as an outsider, I'm not coming to tell you what you need to do and tell you how things work, but I'm listening. I'm providing you a resource if you would like to use it, but I'm doing a lot of listening. It was the same with those groups as well. There was a lot of incredible knowledge about food that I gained from hearing from these different communities. So hopefully, those that are here in the Zoom meeting, but then also listening on our live stream, understand that it's not about us necessarily being preachy. We are observing this larger issue. We're talking about food sovereignty. That's a really big issue with a lot of different branches. We are trying to get and understand how this is happening in this neighborhood, and also discussing this and making plans for not only today's organizer circle, but the following one, March 28th. We looked at what resources we have available because it may be that, to the point of what was mentioned, there's just a lack of knowledge. It's not purposeful. It's just that, people, they got to work, they've got children to take care of, family members to take care of, things to do, right? It may not fit in their, day to day. But we found, like, for example, Cobblestone Farmers Market, they're doing like a grow your own series. They're bringing in these great like knowledge bases from those who have years of experience growing native plants, growing fruits and vegetables in the area, and they're bringing that for free to the farmers market on Saturdays, right? That is an excellent resource. It's a free resource that it's all you have to do is get there, right? To learn a bit more. And I don't know if that will be this week, but I'm pretty sure it was last week or 2 weeks ago. They invited a chef to come in who was doing indigenous American foods and cooking that and showing what that looks like, you know? So in order to not just have this conversation and like point out problems or things that we're observing, but to bring resources to share what we have found in doing our research. We've found that there are these other opportunities for us to learn and then just gain access to these fresh fruits and vegetables, you know, healthier eating, and then learning about all of this. I am personally still curious about this grocery store that, you know, that we found out about, Chris and I, with Paula McCoy and her husband, like what happened with that, because that seems like a really great opportunity. And considering that it was on Liberty Street, we're talking about right smack where in the communities that NBN is serving. So I'm curious to hear a bit more about that. And, you know, is that something that would be helpful for our neighbors, for our communities, you know? So I'll turn it back over to you, Chris. That was the end of my spiel.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, because go ahead, Ms. Travick.
I just want to say that I think most people really want to embrace a healthy lifestyle of eating, a healthy eating lifestyle. And I think with a lot that's going on with us, people are multitasking. They are working 2 or 3 jobs. They're doing this, they're doing that. And sometimes they just don't have time to stop and prepare a good, healthy meal. And I can take myself, for instance. I do a lot of this and that with my grandkids, which takes a lot of time out of your empty space. But I have to stop and say, I have to do something so my family can eat healthy. Now, it's not that I prepare a meal daily, but I do out of 7 days a week. I am in the kitchen at least 4 days, and we do like leftovers. So there again, some people don't like leftovers, but I think leftovers are delicious, especially vegetables. So let me let you know that I have arrived. So I'm gonna just sit back and listen and enjoy the conversation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Travick.
You're welcome.
So with a lot of things, working with NBN and also being a member of the community and also being a younger person, right? I understand many of the, like I share experiences with that I've had. And what I realize is everyone is not like me, but at the same time, because of the many things that I've experienced, if I went through this, I know it's other people who went through this. If I don't know this, I know it's other people who don't know this. So I don't know if I might have told 1 or 2 people. So when I was 11 years old, I became a vegetarian. And so this becomes an interesting story pertaining to the topic. I started learning about, in the 7th grade, my teacher was teaching us about foods and the processes of food. He was sharing with us information from the book, was it The Jungle? Yeah. And I mean, I ended up teaching on that same book as a high school teacher, but you know, the food processing industry, meat processing plants, how we get the USDA, and just to come to find out so much about animals, it was like, what? That got what? Oh no. So I stopped instantly. And yeah, my family did not believe that I was going to do it. But one thing about me, when I say I'm going to do something, not when I'm all the way, I was there. But that became a struggle for my mom. 'Cause we was big at the time on oodles and noodles. So my father passed away, and she had to do it way more, way more. So it wasn't this neglectful woman. It's this woman who scrambling, this woman who's trying her best, who has these children that she had to take care of by herself and still work and still provide. And so, yeah, we had the oodles and noodles. Even if we hated them, back then we loved them. How do you spice these up? Put a little vinegar, a little hot sauce. That was my trick. It was wonderful. Yeah, when I became a vegetarian, most of my food became starches. I was eating mashed potatoes and corn while everybody else got mashed potato, corn, and meat. And so, just something, sustenance. I couldn't get no more hamburger helper because the idea of making that without adding the meat, that was foreign to us. So if that was cooked, I eat it, but what I realized, I did start back eating meat when I was in the 10th grade. So that was from the 7th to the 10th. But I was not properly nourished. I realized that. I realized, okay, well, hold on, everybody else is shooting past me in height. So I'm in the middle of this growth spurt. And I realized, no, something. So I'm not very tall, but I did sprout right after I started eating meat. But when I graduated from college, that became the first time that I controlled what I bought from the grocery store. That became okay, and I actually got a job where I can afford it. So if I got to go to the store for myself now, and I can afford it, I always liked this thing, but I also started, to y'all point, learning way more about food. And so after I graduated college, I became a vegan. That was difficult because it required way more of me. I had to learn way more about food. I had to learn way more about preparing food and the things to eat. And if I got this stuff that I never seen cooked before, because nobody in any of my circles ever made this stuff before, what am I gonna do? And so it might have started as 3 or 4 things. Learning how to make a veggie burger, learning how to make alkaline pizza or different types of things that did not have meat in it. It's like I became a little chef and became creative and started to love a whole bunch of different things and get exposed to foods that I never thought about before. So making that switch was a big educational move for me, but it was also difficult in that with a lot of things, the average grocery store does not have, food line does not have a lot of things that the average vegan will want, you know? And so I'm telling you, when I first, and this is the last piece of my rant, when I first was working with NBN through the summer youth project, it was a different word. I took the students on a field trip because I was explaining some of this to them. So we had just went in the community doing ABCD training, looking at finding the gift, skills, and talents of different people in the neighborhood. And so I had a group of students with me and sharing with them, when you vegan, or it's a lot of questions. And so I was explaining to them how a lot of things that we can find in our local grocery store will be harmful. And so we went on a field trip. The first place we went was to the food line on MLK. The first thing that I asked them to do is, as soon as you walk in the door, use your senses, smell it. How does this smell? Because I know where we're going after this, but I want you to take note of how does this smell as soon as you walk in the store. Okay, let's go straight to the produce. Let's look at the produce. And looking at the produce, it was real shiny. So I thought, okay, this was in comparison to the next grocery store. The apples are real shiny, has to be made to look at the time like they were perfect, good, shiny, ruby red apple. Boom. So we went around the produce section, and then we went to every other aisle. And so I taught them about high fructose corn syrup, and then we went through the line and how many of these items. So just the snack bar, high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup. Oh, these juices. Look at this one. It's $1. Wonderful. We want some. Ooh, that's $1. My mama need to come get this right now. Let's look at the label. High fructose corn syrup. You know, look how this bottle does not say juice on it. It says 100% drink. So it's like, I remember that was first pointed out to me. I'm like, okay, I'm just buying stuff. It's 100% drink. So yeah, it could be cheap. Yeah, food stuff. It's 100% drink. They don't say juice on it at all. Look at the back. It's almost no juice, artificial flavor, this, a whole bunch of different names. Why is all of that in the fruit drink, or what I thought was fruit drink? We left there, long story short, we went to Whole Foods. Okay, so you walk in the door, smell the difference. It's like the freshness just hits you as soon as you walk in Whole Foods. And I wanted to share that with them because I'm like, it's a total difference, even in the produce aisle. And so we went to every aisle. We looked at the different cereals and stuff. Like, you don't see Captain Crunch in here at all. There's no Captain Crunch. There's no Cinnamon Toast Crunch. There's a version of that, might be $1 more expensive. But look at the ingredients. Okay, you don't see the same stuff in it's almost like high fructose corn syrup is banned out of Whole Foods. And it might be something in there with it, but it's like, why is this thing that was dominant in almost every food and food line not present at all in Whole Foods? And so, yeah, it was a big deal and I guess when we start looking at the solutions, right? Because we had a couple of guests who were supposed to be on who were giving us solutions, and we should have them on next session. If they can't join us today, that's fine. But we started the conversation. And so that was a big deal. And it blew those students' mind. And they were taking up applications to try to work at Whole Foods. They were so excited. They'd never been there before. And so it still was across town. It still was a bus ride. It still technically would be considered food desert. So when we start talking about sovereignty, it's like, how do we make it a point to own having this in our communities? Education, absolutely number one. More people. And I think when we thought about the grocery store, what's the demand? Because we know people can provide the stuff, but everybody won't necessarily buy it. They won't necessarily support it if it's $1 more. If this thing is way better for your health than what you are eating, is your health more valuable to you? And so we have seen, for instance, with the housing issue, right? And people who might stay in a home that is worse for them conditionally and not complain about it because they don't want the rent to go up. If they don't correlate that with their health, why do I care about the food aspect health-wise if it's not going to kill me tomorrow? And if I start dropping tomorrow, yeah. But if I can't imagine 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, what's the point? So go ahead, Ms. Travick, and anybody else who want to speak on that.
Oh, you caught me with a cookie in my mouth. But yeah, I'm sorry. But anyway, I don't know. You had mentioned gardening. I was driving, so I wasn't really zooming in on what you were saying. But gardening, which is a wonderful way to defeat food deserts. And I know it's easier said than done. And I wish I could see more community gardens and more people individually gardening, because it brings so much joy in eating, and certainly joy in sharing the harvest. So I just want to say something about gardening. And what I'm hoping to do in the very near future, we have an above garden site for our neighborhood association. And I want to invite any other residence leaders who want to engage in that project with us. You're welcome to join us. The more the merrier.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And so we have access, maybe we can get the link in here now, to the cobblestone market and the gardening tips. They got a lot of information there. Miss Sandra, you shared some information with us yesterday about Was that Webster's? And
Yeah, it was Webster Brothers for her.
yes,
I don't
ma'am.
know.
But Miss
Yeah,
Travick, to your point, yeah, I mean, gardening was the next topic that the next piece of conversation we needed to get to, because food deserts, food sovereignty, which is controlling, being more involved with, even with that rent. It's like, okay, if these fruits were shinier, I didn't get to it because they had wax on them.
Mhm.
This was a capitalistic decision. Somebody's bottom line was more important than our health. Well, it's always going to be that way until people take more control or take on owning, which is being more in depth, in tune with the sovereign aspect of food, controlling not just the cooking aspect, but the growing.
Yeah. See, when I grew up, we had a garden. So that was just natural to want to grow food. And people are interested in it, but then when some people get into it, it's a lot of work. And sometimes even after all that work, you don't get what you think you're going to get. But that should show them how farmers have the same problem. My concern about why I think people should grow their own food and garden is because the commercial farmers are buying up the land of farmers that just grow food. And that's not good, because they're going to use chemicals. They're not going to do like a farmer does. He farms in one area this year. Next year, he goes across the street and farms in that area, so that soil can replenish itself. But they're not doing that now. They're using chemicals and etc. to replenish the soil. And that's not natural farming.
And hormones.
And
Yes,
hormones.
ma'am.
So
Yeah.
that's why people should grow their own food.
Yes, ma'am.
To a point. I realize you can't grow everything because we got climate, but you can store food for a while. You understand? You can freeze it or you can can it. Can is not my thing because it does take a lot of times, and I don't like pressure cookers. They scare me. I haven't gotten out of that yet, but my mama used to pressure cook all her life, and I was not in the kitchen when it was on.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's my concern about all this about food and the abundance of food that people and unfortunately in a whole lot of indigenous areas in North Carolina, whether it be Indians, whether it be Black people, whether it be Hispanic people, they have all these stores around like Dollar General, and it's nothing in there but junk. I tried to get my little nephew, when I took him to the store, I said, read on the back. What does it say? It's loaded. I say it's either going to be loaded with sugar or it's going to be loaded with salt. One or the other. Because that pleases your taste buds. When my brother had to go on a low sodium diet, picked up, I can have this potato chips that says 200 milligrams. I said yes, and 3 chips. Where does it say that? I said at the top of the label, serving size. So it's, you have to educate people to understand what you're eating, because you can make most of this stuff yourself. And you can control the sugar and you can control the salt.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's hard to get people to do.
And that's a part of sovereignty. That's what we're trying to get to.
I know. And that's the part that's hard.
And to your point, before we go to, I think, Miss Trevor and then Christian, the salt or the sugar, imagine when they put both of them in there.
Oh, yeah. They're off the hook then, aren't they?
That's how they used to get me. I mean, all drugged up
Of
on potato
course.
chips.
And that's how they get children, on the sugar.
Mm-hmm. Miss Travitt. There she go. Go ahead, Kristen.
Sorry. So in hearing, I really appreciate hearing that this discussion of gardening, or this beginning of this discussion of gardening, because I noticed that when we have done some of our like tours around the different neighborhoods that we work in here in Winston, we see that there are multiple community gardens. So with that in mind, like I would love to hear from any of our resident leaders that are on to talk about what efforts are being made with the community gardens, or is there an interest in starting them but haven't yet gotten the resources yet to get that going, or what's happening with that? Because to Miss Sandra's point, like that, and Miss Geraldine Travick's point, by having these smaller gardens, people are in control of their access to this fresh food, right? So they're the ones that are putting the seeds in the ground. They have chosen what it is that they want to grow. They are taking care of it and then harvesting it and then using it for them and their families or their neighborhood. So they are in complete control of this very small like food system that can make a big impact. So since gardening can be so impactful, what's happening in your neighborhoods? Is there an interest in doing that? How is that going?
And can I add, how do you sustain the efforts, if anybody can speak to that? Because we also see what used to be gardens in some areas, but they just dormant. So how do we sustain that?
Well, we have to make it interesting for one thing, and sometimes you have to really grow what they maybe like to indulge in. You just can't throw in some beets and some carrots because a lot of people really don't like certain vegetables. So I guess we would start with asking, well, what do you like to eat? What do you enjoy eating? And plant that, showing them how to plant it, how you test the soil. As a matter of fact, I just left the North Carolina Cooperative Extension on Fairchild Road. That's where I was driving from. I got some things because we want to introduce more gardening to our association because of the food desert. And not only that, because of the enjoyment in gardening, you can meditate, you can just the feel of the earth. It just so much in gardening. It gives so much. It's just so fulfilling for me, and I just like to pass that on to my skills. And I believe me and Sandra must be sisters from another parents, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because we're in that generation where our parents, grew up, had gardens, and just all the good things that life could afford. But it was just wonderful, and I like to just pass that on. But I've learned as a child to others to see that we have to appreciate what is given to us by Mother Nature. Appreciate it. As you know, the adage that goes, if you teach a man to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. We know that one. Well, I
Yes, ma'am.
say if you teach a person to garden, they can also eat for a lifetime. So we're going to start this soon in our association. I have some handouts I got from the extension this morning, and I want to be able to direct their interest in gardening because it's a wonderful pastime. It's just an opportunity waiting for some of these empty lots and the plots that I see around the city that just need some attention. They're just waiting to be adopted.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. If anybody else want to speak about the gardening they're doing in their community?
How was everybody today?
Doing well, Miss Rita.
Hi,
That's
Rita.
good. Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I did a garden last year and plan to redo it again, but I had corn, I had potatoes, I had peppers, I had collard greens, I had kale, I had string beans. And yes, it does. I did every day I took a picture every day of how, the difference in when they start to grow and to bud and things like that. And I got excited about it because it's like, wow, I actually did something, and it grew. And you do really enjoy, if you really enjoy it, it's just amazing to when you actually see the stuff that you had planted. And
Yes, ma'am.
I had so much collard greens, and I gave a lot of them out into my community in the area. And it was just a joy to be able to actually, from day one all the way to actually see what it is that you did. I had the tiller, I tilled it, I had tomatoes. I mean, it was just a joy, and I'm going to start it again.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
yes, it does relax your mind. It just takes you into another world where, you don't have to think about anything else, but just think about what it is that you're actually doing in the garden. And I was just so amazed. So yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Rita made a good point about seeing the progression of what you planted from the
Mhm,
seed into the harvest.
mhm.
She is right about that. The excitement and watching it grow. You're raising a child almost. But one thing I've learned too, Rita, a watch pot never grows. When I first started, I would go out there every day to watch it. But a watch pot never, whatever I said. But it just you have to do something to go and you have to weed it. You have to do something. You got to work the soil, and it's just wonderful. And she's right. You got to put the excitement in it. And thank you for that little bit, farmer Rita.
You're welcome.
Farmer.
Corn, all that.
Yeah, it was
You're big
just,
time, girl.
I was just like, wow.
Yes,
Love
ma'am.
a farmer. We love a farmer.
Mhm. And I'm from originally from New York. And,
Mhm.
we didn't have, area because it's so crowded, and where we lived at, I couldn't do it. But down here, I have an area in my yard that I do it. And I'm going to start backing up and doing it again. But yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I mentioned yesterday. So last year I got some trees, and I was really excited about these trees. They took a lot from me to plant. But I had peach trees and I got apple trees. And the peach trees, they were taken from an area and then placed in my yard. They were given to me because of, let's say, my school had planted them, but then for political reasons, they had to take them up. And so I was like, oh, just came to ask about them because when I asked about it years ago, I was told it's going to take a couple years for them to produce. It's like they're right there sitting in this pot. And so I what I had three. He gave me three, then I went and bought another one because it was a type of peach tree that needed another one similar to it so that they could pollinate. And so eventually learned that they could pollinate with apple trees, just other fruit trees too. But so I put them there. But I think they have been out the ground too long. I don't know yet because they still don't look like they have life. But three of them, my apple trees and one of the peach trees are budding. They got little leaves, so that's exciting. And to your point, a long time ago, I played golf probably three times in my life. I ain't get it. I'm like, why do everybody do this? It's like, whatever. But I went out once I really learned how to just hit the ball. All right. And I went out by myself because I wanna I didn't want anybody to be impatient with my lack of skill. And so I'm on the cart and I'm driving myself and I did at least 10 of the 18. And it was like, oh my gosh, I get it. The tranquility, the peace, the serenity, it was like an aspect of meditation because you got to concentrate and everybody's quiet. It was a wonderful personal feeling. Not to mention, I mean, I didn't care if the ball did all that, even though some people might. But last year, so talking about the motivation, my wife and mother-in-law, they guarded 2 years ago. And then last year, my mother-in-law she went out of town, and my wife was pregnant. So we saw a lot of weeds that we farmed. We gardened weeds but I went to go pull those towards at least middle of the summer, just because, all right, we gotta do something. I'm really busy. After school was out. See, during the school year, I was way too busy. When school was out, I had more time to go get involved in it. What happened was I had that same experience from golfing, to the point that y'all just made. It was like, it was so tranquil when I was pulling those weeds, just to smell the air. Know what I'm saying? Not to get pollinated, but it's like, man. So the feeling came back over me. That's when I realized, oh, that's what this is. This is an aspect of meditation. And the, to see like, I mean, your stuff that you produce in your hand is one thing, but to take it to in the house and make a meal out of it, it's like completing all the aspects of magic. Yeah, really wonderful. Anyone else? So Kristen,
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of this. I love gardening. I mean, I don't know if people can see in my little camera here, we're very much a plant family. So I have my little garden started on our patio. You know, there's some limitations being in an apartment, but we're still gonna give it a shot. But I just, all of this does come back to food sovereignty. It may not be on the grand scale, especially when we talk about like indigenous communities and what they've been through throughout the history of this country, not having what the food sovereignty they did have originally compared to now, for a number of reasons. In our situation here in Winston-Salem, this is where we work, this is where we live, and this is where we love, when it comes to being with our community. And this is what the area that we are focused on. So we want to see, like, there are so many opportunities to have that food sovereignty. It's whether or not we choose to take them, right? It's whether or not we can come to an agreement, whether, especially when we're talking about our communities or neighborhoods, is this something that we're interested in doing? If it is, what are the resources that you need? So for our resident leaders on the call, what do you need from us, or what do you need in general to make this a reality? Some of you have made this effort to do community gardens. You're doing your personal gardens. You've shared your harvest with your neighbors. You're getting things ready to do this again, despite the really weird weather we're having. You're getting like putting some things in motion. So what other supports do you need? Because yes, it is about nutrition. Yes, there's the meditation, that meditative state, that calming when you're gardening, you're watching something grow, you're nurturing. There are those things, but also we can like speak to this greater issue of food sovereignty in our communities, by having our community gardens, by having that control over our access to fresh fruits and vegetables and herbs. So my question for you, in the time that we have left on Organizer Circle, is what other support do you need to make this a reality? What other helps do you need?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Geraldine again. As far as help, are you actually talking about help? I mean, there are also, my question is, when I say help, because sometimes we may need funding, and I think there is a way we can apply for a grant through NBN. So I would say, Kristen, What I need is help to apply for a grant for our association. I really need that help to get this off the ground and to expand it like we want to. We can get it started, but I have a vision of how I want it to be, and for this vision to become into a actual mission for the community, we would certainly have to have some assistance with a grant, and we can expand it, and we can do other things from that. It could lead to other things. So that would be my request.
Awesome, thank you.
Grassroots grant.
Mhm. Anyone else? What other helps can we provide? Resources, knowledge, what would be helpful to move some of this forward?
So you might, I guess what I just put in the chat, which was first shared by Miss Levine, the 2 documentaries. I didn't see either one of those. The Game Changer and the Fed Up. And I was gonna say, Kristen, you said you watched the Game Changer twice. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was really interesting. A different perspective when it came to veganism. I won't give away too much because it's very interesting, very engaging. I would suggest it. I believe it's still on Netflix. But the perspective of, I believe he was an MMA fighter, and he had a major injury that kind of, took him out the game for a little bit. But he was looking at these different options, to improve his health, and just help his body heal more efficiently. And obviously under the direction of a doctor, nutritionist, dietitian, like a whole team. It wasn't just him by himself. But he interviewed other serious athletes who are vegans, because so often, I just think of like Rocky and like the raw eggs, doing that for his training, or just how often, I guess, meat or animal products are kind of centered around like bulking up for health, or like as a major protein source. And so it was interesting to hear this from that perspective of all like athletes, and not necessarily from the perspective of care for animals or the environmental impact. Like, this was strictly, for the most part, a focus on physical health and like optimal health for athletics. So it's just an interesting perspective, a different one.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And then I put Food Disparities Collaborative, and I'm just throwing that out because that Health Disparities Collaborative meeting we had last week was so wonderful. It's like, okay, well, to the point you made earlier, there are a lot of people who are doing gardens. I've had a lot of friends who are organizers that I've seen on social media talking about doing garden exchanges, or what's it called? What's the economic word for it? When you the Winston-Salem Food Sovereignty Collective. I like that. Bartering. Yeah, okay. Miss Rita got the corn. We got the tomatoes, but mostly that's what everybody be growing. So you might, if you want some real bang for your buck, you gotta grow something everybody ain't got. I worked with the farmer, his name will come to me in a second. Y'all know he sell the watermelons, big time watermelon seller in Winston-Salem. And so I went to go help his farm that was basically going towards rural hall. Yeah, we're going, Old Germantown Road. And I had to pick some weeds, and it was so soggy that we couldn't plant nothing that day. But he told me last year was a bad year for tomatoes here, and even watermelons. It was a horrible year for watermelons and a lot of different crops. And so those are the pieces that we don't touch on very often, because a lot of people had big tomato issues around the country, around the entire country. And so even when you say you got a collective, I think the thing I'm learning, and to me, this fits everything that we do. This aspect of sovereignty, period. You know, you control. I was at the county commissioner meeting yesterday, and sister came in there to ask for the county commissioner's perspective on this House bill that deals with the education in the school systems, basically with language pertaining to kind to mute African American studies the way that they did in Florida. This is North Carolina's version of that bill. It's basically what we're talking about here. And so, of course, that thing should not be passed. But at the end of the day, you know, when we own and control the narrative ourselves, just like we own and control the access to food ourselves, it's like part of this is that as a people, because of the way capitalism is structured, because of the way sales in big business is structured, I want to find a way to convenience you and provide a thing for you so you can worry about doing other stuff. Many times the other stuff becomes work to get the money for the things that I'm providing you that you now don't have the time to provide yourself. And so it's a cycle, but we have to worry more about the narrative of African American studies if we're completely dependent on that coming from the school system in the first place. And that's always, as an educator, been my number one stance to the community. This needs to be something that's so ingrained in the community. When they get in my classroom, all I'm doing is speaking on it. I'm just highlighting stuff that these students just already know full-fledged. Same thing with growing food. Cooking food to that degree, you know, it got to be placed back into the culture. The culture adopted spending all of this money in the grocery stores on processed foods, on things that come in boxes. We adopted it. It wasn't what our great grandmothers was doing. Maybe depending on how old your great grandma is, but no, they didn't know anything about nothing in no box. More than likely, at least, okay, great grandma, if we want to go there. They never heard of it. They went to the market, they got it fresh, they came back and cooked it. I told a lot of my students who, I don't see how you can be a vegetarian. This is what I want you to do. Go to the farm, slaughter the animal yourself. And I mean, some people might like it, but and it's not about being this or that, but it's about you need to pay attention to what goes into putting that in front of your plate. You have no idea. You are not associated or attached to that food. It just appeared, you know, and it becomes that way for a lot of things. The detachment, the disassociation, and the convenience of capitalism is a large part of why we aren't sovereign in a lot of different areas. And so it's something that we have to continue to put energy into. So whether it's a Winston-Salem Food Sovereignty Collective or anything else like gardening, we have to put the energy into it. And we do get something out of it when we do, like Miss Militant said. Now, all that stuff you made, Miss Militant, it sounded like you made a nice dinner. It's one thing that you grew some tomatoes and you putting that in the salad, but when the whole thing is right there, like I grew all of this.
Yeah, one of the things that excited me is that the collard greens, you know, they tasted sweet. You know, they tasted sweeter. It's like it's a difference between you going to the store and getting it, and then you get it from the garden, because it has a different taste. It was just like, wow. I said, I did Rome tomatoes and the steakhouse tomatoes. And, you know, I said, let me compare the difference from what I've grown to what was in the store. And it had a different taste to it. It's different.
Yes, ma'am.
where you actually, you grow it and stuff. And, it just, the corn was, it was just amazing on how stuff just tastes different from when you go to the grocery store. It just tastes
Yes, ma'am.
different. Mhm.
Wonderful.
And one other question I had, Christian had asked about, is there anything that y'all can be able, to help with the garden? A grant would be good to help in what I would need to do that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris, let me jump in and say also something about gardening, if I'm backing this up a little bit. Another way I get people interested in gardening too is that you don't have to actually go into the ground or above the ground. They can also do pot. They can do gardening in pots. If you want to start, sometimes you have to take them slowly. So I recommend use some type of container gardening. You can put on your deck or your patio, wherever you have a space, and just start with one plant, maybe a tomato plant, something that's easy, and show them how to do that, how to care for them. I used to put something on a piece of paper on a popsicle stick that I've gotten from Michael somewhere and help them with the instructions to put in the pot so they know what they need to do. And that has been effective. Also, I like to grow herbs, a lot of herbs. And I grow herbs because it's good seasoning. It's a substitute for salt or something else that you want to add to your food for flavoring. I use it for my teas in the winter. And I also I grow some of the herbs to repel mosquitoes. So I have a
Which
multiple
ones?
reasons.
I need them.
You need those? Okay, well, I'll tell you which ones to get, how to plant them, because really herbs pretty much take care of themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
You clip some because you're cooking with them, but basically your mint family really takes care of themselves, and you will enjoy the fragrance on a nice summer evening when the wind blows and it just smells so wonderful. But it smells good to you and mosquitoes can't stand it. So that's just my bit also on gardening. We can also include herbs, which is a fun way to learn to garden.
Yes, ma'am.
And I had one other thing when she mentioned about the herbs. I have a spearmint plant. So even my dogs try to go over there and you just smell it or whatever. But I had spearmint and I did make a tea with it and put it in there. And the smell of it just was different. But every year it comes back,
Absolutely.
the spearmint. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
So they self-producing after that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Every year.
Yes,
If you
ma'am.
put a little mulch on them, it wouldn't hurt to put a little mulch. If your leaves, put a little mulch on it, keep them warm. But you
Mhm.
would have a good, it's a perennial and it'll come back.
So we're gonna have y'all teach part 2 of this. We don't even need to go to Copperstone. We just got everything in-house. That's what ABCD training do. This the gift, skills, and
Well,
resources.
there's always something to learn.
The gift, skills, and talents is all here. Yes, ma'am. Miss Juanita, would you like to add anything?
I'm sorry, did you say Juanita?
Yes, ma'am. I was wondering if you wanted to add anything.
Yes, well, I do a lot of gardening in my backyard, and Pastor Harris and I, we've already talked about getting a garden started.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
What you grow in your backyard, Miss Juanita?
Squash, tomatoes, greens, the works, cucumbers.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I go in hard.
Yeah, I know where to go when I need to make a salad. I can walk to your house now.
Hey, yes, I love gardening.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Absolutely.
I
got
do too, Miss
banana trees
Juanita.
in my yard and everything.
You said a banana tree?
Banana trees. They be trying to grow bananas, but they be just real, real little, but you can tell where they trying to grow.
Yeah, my aunt had one and it did the same thing, but she was in Georgia.
hmm
And it was
Yeah, I got 4 back here.
Okay. Yeah, let me know how them do.
Okay, then.
Hmm.
Yes, we would love to have a garden. And I heard y'all talking about a grant
Hmm.
probably could help us out with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Dang, Destinate here. So I share with y'all, if you haven't, he was in a training yesterday, but we got our new impact and engagement coordinator, Mr. Dustin Sellers. And so he will also be over the grassroots grants program. So I think the ball will be moving faster with all of those things. And we heard y'all. Y'all want money for these gardens. So I ain't a person that can make no promises, but to the point of Miss Travick's ask and Mrs. Sandra's ask, we could definitely help y'all to craft your ask, if nothing else. Absolutely.
We appreciate it because that would certainly help us to launch a wonderful program. And with that grant, we can do other things as well within the community, within the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And I, to my understanding, that's the purpose of the grassroots grants program. So it's been people who been outside, but the first ones I ever seen awarded was awarded to our not necessarily resident leaders, because I don't even know if that term had existed, but definitely the people who did the work of what our resident leaders do now. So yeah, we will definitely, and I know Miss Juanita has already, her neighborhood has applied for one already, but definitely, that's what it's there for.
Chris, can I say one thing too?
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
not only do we need a grant, I need to know how to go about preparing, requesting the request for it also. Everything
Request.
is part in requesting one. Yeah, how to write it up and the whole
Hmm.
works. I just need guidance on that part.
Yes, ma'am. And I think it's two things here, right? So we might be talking about small grassroots grants for different neighborhoods, but if we do start a collective, for instance, the thing about energy is when you put energy into a thing and allow it to grow and take off on its own, you will be surprised. You'll be surprised how far that can go. And this, and I'm gonna throw the name back out there. The Winston-Salem Food Sovereignty Collective could possibly get larger grants from a state or federal level to do work in our communities. And so I always look at what Boston Thurman has done, right, in regards to taking their neighborhood association and making a collective for the neighborhood and then growing it to where they receive funding. And with that funding, it's for their community. And so it can be everybody community hopefully can grow to that level. But collectively, all of us can, become the historic power that our neighborhoods used to be, you know. And so even when we talked about yesterday with Miss Sandra and the 45% voting in the area versus the 85% voting in the whole community, these little things matter. Something like collectively organizing around how our communities eat. Everything is civic engagement. I'm gonna beat that one to death because it's the truth. Everything is civic engagement. Everything that we organize around. Next thing you know, that conversation could become, oh, this is my gardening club. Well, we coming about this now. And this is how many people we got to talk about this issue. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. And that's a power. All right, all right.
Chris, when is the deadline for getting the grants in to NBN? Do you know
So
the deadline?
no, ma'am. I know we just opened the new window for this quarter. Something new just happened in regards to looking at them, but I'm not a grant person. So I we'll have Dustin on soon so he can talk to y'all. Y'all can be introduced to him, and as he learned the process, he can even explain that and talk to you guys more about that.
You talking about like next week, maybe, or when?
Hopefully, I mean, we don't technically
Yeah,
have
because I
a
don't want to miss. I'm quite sure we don't want to miss the deadline for this because it's urgent because this
no
is
no.
planting season
Well, yeah, planting
and we need
season.
it. And another thing too, while I'm talking about planting season, another item that we're coming that's another concern for us in these gardens that we don't have water access.
Mm,
So we have to get our water jugs and bring it, tote it to the sites, water it. So it'd be convenient if we had some way to, I don't know if the city would be willing to come and water. I don't know. I haven't gone that far yet because it's what we're
mhm.
doing now. But we're looking at another option. We're trying to access water to water our garden because the larger it is, the more adequate water supply you would need.
We need to see this is where the science comes in, right? Because to the point, we got a stream right there, all right, in the backyards of the community. How do we? This is when they start doing the engineering. It's a way to get water from that stream to the gardens in that community. That's above my Now I know it. I know it's historically ancient civilizations, ancient agricultural groups would create paths where there would be a way for the water to travel to specific places just for gardening. And then they can cut it off and let it keep going downstream when they needed to. But to that point, there is a way. She's talking about trying to start stuff with us. No.
That's why we would need a grant because there are
Mhm.
rain barrels we could purchase to catch
Mhm.
rainwater.
Yes,
And we
ma'am.
can just dip from that, and that would be our source. But right now, barrels are what, $100 or more,
Them
the ones
things
that I
expensive.
price.
They expensive.
Yeah, they're expensive, but they do the job very well.
Absolutely. They do.
And we have to also sometimes have a way to secure.
Mhm.
And there's just a
People be
lot in trying
stealing.
to have a community garden.
People
Yeah,
be
it's
stealing.
so I won't I'm gonna get off this. I'm getting off
No,
this.
ma'am.
I'm jumping off.
Thank you for all that. And to your point, Miss Travick, yeah. So I guess that's something we can organize around next week before we get to our next organizer circle. There are different groups that we did expect to be on that some of them will be looking to be on the 28th. And I do think with those resources, they might have access to some of this stuff for us. They might have other opportunities. But in-house, yes, we do got a grassroots grants program that we can look into collectively and aggressively and aggressively and aggressively. And so yeah, I think the most beautiful part of that is the person who's going to be in charge of it isn't on board now. He is getting a crash course in all of this, but he here, so we can take that somewhere. Chris Taylor, can't make no promises to you, but I'm here to work with us to get stuff done, and so let's see what we can do. And Kristen just put in the chat, looking to those two things. Pretty sure spoke about our water access, and the cooperative extension was providing rail. The cooperative extension was providing rain barrels at one point. So we'll find out about that. Per Kristen, yeah. I know personally, I'm gonna go watch one of those documentaries, and I would encourage everybody to watch at least one of them. And I think even with that, as we play with this Winston-Salem Food Sovereignty Collective, maybe it's a Google Doc where we can share information, resources, tracking information for the other grants that exist for communities. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's an organization that we will be attaching to, or we will be meeting with next week and next 2 weeks, speaking into existence, that will also already have a list of documents that we can tap into. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm gonna be quiet. And I ain't gonna say nothing that Chris, you said. So I'm gonna be quiet. No. Any more questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Where is the cooperative extension located at? Is that the one right off of Airport Road?
Yeah, it's on Fairchild Road. If you come down Liberty Street,
Yes, ma'am. I did
it's near
training
the
there.
airport.
Yeah.
It's near the airport, and it's if you go down Fairchild, it's on your right. And as soon as you go into that curve, it's right there in the curve. And they're very resourceful, very helpful.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, I'll make it a point to reach out to them, like we said they did. Kristen is going to do that. I'm gonna let her
Yeah,
do it.
we established a partnership with them. If you want, if any neighborhood association wanted to start a garden, you just call Matthew or stop by there, and you just sign on with something, and you have to form, you have to sign, this you have to enroll to form a partnership with them, and you go from there, and they're there for you.
Yes, ma'am. So the biggest takeaway, we have neighborhood associations, we have resident leaders, we have communities that have and are in the process of starting gardens. We have people who access to different organizations like Hope, Help Our People Eat, and Ms. Burton, I didn't know if you said you got yours from the cooperative extension or not, and I think you mentioned the church, but we have organizations that even do fresh produce and giveaways of different types of food. But what we could use more of is resources to help us ease our gardening and farming endeavors.
Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry, I meant to share too. You have, I don't know her last name, but her name is Miss Joyce, and she been coming over to the Ladera Crest Recreation Center, and she does gardening, and she's trying to start it back up. I have to get her name. She wants to set a date, so that's in effect as well, to have fresh tomatoes, potatoes, kale, whatever, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have to get her last name. I met with her last week when they had the food giveaway. So I'm
Joyce.
getting on it. Yeah, Miss Joyce from the Cancer Center.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we gotta pull these resources together, and we can do that on a document. Yeah. And then we can go from there because as we do resident leader meetings in the US and everything, as we collect and learn and organize and build relationships individually and collectively with people with our different neighborhoods, providing these resources to each other becomes essential. And so, yeah, I would love to learn more about Miss Joyce, and we're going to see about them rain barrels and those grants too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. Me as I spilled my coffee and everything, trying to juggle that. I appreciate you ladies always. Always.
And we appreciate you as well, and Kristen, and our guest. I don't see that's still available, Miss Levine.
Yeah, she had to go to
And
another
thanks
meeting.
for Mimi for hosting.
Thank you, Mimi.
Thank you.
We thank y'all.
Yes, ma'am. So no further
Okay.
ado.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Peace
you.
and love. God be with all of you. See you
God
later.
bless.
Have a wonderful day.
Yep.
God
Thank
bless.
All of
you.
you.
Eat healthy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes,
Bye
ma'am.
bye. Love
Y'all take
you.
care. Miss Travick,
Okay.
are you gonna email
Yes,
me
sir.
or were you planning on coming this way?
Oh, I'm here at Clemens Elementary waiting for my son. That's where I was en route to. And I'm waiting. I'm glad I had the opportunity to sit here and wait and listen in on the Zoom meeting.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
as soon as I get home, I will how long you'll be there? I can get it tomorrow. I can pick it up tomorrow.
Yes,
It's just
ma'am.
I
At
just
least
need the agenda and the sign-in sheet. So I just probably need about, I don't think there are more than 25 people probably at the meeting, if that many, because some people in my association, they work. I hope other people, sometimes people just don't have an interest.
Oh, you wasn't
So I
on here
say
yet.
this. Huh?
Yeah, you wasn't on here in the beginning. I was explaining, or you was on, but then you got off when
Okay.
we was idle. But I was explaining to everybody. I went to the county commissioner meeting yesterday, and so talked more
The one
extensively
downtown or one at 14th Street?
14th Street Rec.
Okay, okay.
So I talked to Miss McDaniels, and in addition, Dan Best. Dan has been very instrumental in a lot of the environmental issues, period, in a lot of different ways. One of the things that was brought up when I was about to leave was the Brushy Creek green space, Greenway, Green Park, something that they're doing. And so I believe that's tied into the what's the thing called, the what's the cell, the road, the New Walkertown Road
Oh,
redevelopment that they're trying to do.
it's part of that. Oh, you're talking about those,
Yeah, because they're
they
trying to
had
do,
something recently about how we can renovate what's good. No, okay. Trying to update it.
yeah. So those
Oh,
two
New
are
Walker
going
County
hand in
11.
hand. Hmm.
Okay.
From my understanding, because I mean it's the same creek. So the Greenway, I know, extends across New Walkertown Road, and it's on the other side. It's behind it. It's like on with the graveyard, all of that, which is a part of
Yeah,
those
it's very
greenways,
long. Uh-huh.
those pathways,
Uh-huh.
those bike paths that they're trying to do a citywide
Mhm.
connection. I knew that, and so, but even with the issue that your community has been dealing with, it's it's similar, but it's different. So,
Yeah.
as mentioned from the county commissioner, there absolutely is, for instance, 3 commissioners who are on board, or that Miss McDaniel said she can get 3. She got to try to get at least that 4 vote on this issue. And Mr. Best was basically reiterating that, especially with this being an issue that he's really tied to. It's close to him, the environmental thing. I was trying to leave because I had another meeting to get to, and they made it a point to call me out. I'm in the back of the room and everything. Oh, Chris, before you leave, stop everything they was doing. I was just like, they wanted to talk about
Okay.
pure violence, but I told them, I'm like, I don't have anything to do with pure violence. But since we was talking about this Brushy Creek thing, this is what I do want to share. And it was more in line with the idea that a lot of what I'm finding as I do this work in different areas, and all of these different many areas that we're working in, is that the environmental issue is way more pertinent than many of us have, definitely than I've known. I haven't really correlated a lot of the issues we deal with in the Black community to be environmental issues. And so, with so many things, because right before that, they talked about the Weaver fire. And I'm like, with so many things
Mm.
in this role, I have begun to correlate way more of that to environmental. So many of these things, even the highways, even these roads that they build or don't build, expand or don't expand, these are also environmental issues. Because when we was doing the Weaver fire thing, for instance, there was a resident, and y'all might have heard me mention this before. I know I said it before to somebody. There were community members who were there first talking about the fire and the air quality due to the fire. And then in the same breath, same person started talking about the roads in the next meeting. And they had the Weaver fire. Well, they had a community meeting, and then after that they had a road meeting. Or the collective community meeting. And the collective community meeting, that was first. The brother was mentioning the roads, how his community gets runoff. And one of the things he was asking for was an expanded road to include more lanes on that street because of traffic, specifically during certain hours. And I think this was like Cherry Street or something he was talking about. And so right after that,
Is he speaking about Indiana Avenue where a lot of the residents live and there's a danger with the curve? Is that what he's talking about? Because there was a discussion about them trying to get extended lanes on Indiana Avenue.
that's probably
You know where
definitely,
Piney Grove Church is?
but it was this Piney Grove meeting, so yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what they were talking about. And I do
But
agree because I
but
travel that
but
way.
but
Mhm.
listen though, because that's an environmental issue too. Once you extend that lane, imagine how many vehicles are now coming down there. Imagine the type of exhaust that's now coming down there, which, you know, it's fine if that's what everybody wants, but being conscious of the environmental effect of that decision was not present. And in the same breath, the same community who's asking for that is also talking about the air quality from the Weaver fire. So it's like we don't always correlate environmental issues in our asks because
No.
whether we want that or not, that's not what I'm like. Hold up, they both were environmental issues. They both had environmental factors all embedded in them that could definitely both be detrimental to the community. One was seen because we was talking about this specific topic. This other one wasn't necessarily seen because it wasn't what was looked at as pertinent pertaining to that conversation. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting too, when you said they're requesting the expansion of lanes on Indiana Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
in that request, they also talking about giving up some property
Mm-hmm.
because some of those homes are very already close to the street. And just imagine if you expand the lanes, how
Mm-hmm.
much more you're gonna be closer to the street because they have to take land or space in order to expand the lanes. So I think they're compounding the problem.
Yes,
Either
ma'am.
they, I don't know, that's gonna be something hard to, I don't know. I don't have a solution for that other than something needs to be done because of the traffic. But then the
Mm-hmm.
expansion is going to perhaps bring more closer to their to their
Yeah.
property.
How you
Which
expand a
means
street?
more endangerment.
If you expand a street, it's taking up somebody something every time.
Yeah,
These
it's gonna be
roundabouts,
something
all
to
of
think
that.
about. You know, what I mean, it's like comparing apples to oranges. What would you rather have? A safer street, and they take a lot of my property away to expand it, and I'm closer to the street,
Mm-hmm.
or I leave it as it is, or I move, which is
Yeah, but
I'm never gonna pick
is
up and
that the
move.
best decision though? Is the expansion like? Sometimes what I realized when we was doing revitalization in our community, many times we got the illusion of choice. The set of choices that you provided for me were not all the choices available. So if you gave me 3 to pick from, we might automatically assume that only 3 exist. The 3 don't exist. Only 3 don't exist for the other side of town. Why do 1 or 2 exist over here? These are the options you're giving me. But when I go over there, hold up, they got stuff small that we don't even bring to the conversations over here when y'all approach us. Even some of our own people who are in these positions as elected officials. It's like, y'all don't know better. I'm going to just assume you don't know better. It's not something that you came in this position, you wasn't thinking about roads. You was thinking about crime. You was thinking about poverty. You was thinking about health of your community members. You wasn't necessarily, you ain't get elected off of the road. So it wasn't even an area of expertise. So when you dive into it, who making it a point to do all the homework? And so many times that might cost tax dollars, right? Well, you could say they got the tax dollars over there, so but we got we pay for taxes too. We want these same resources over
Well,
here too.
well, Chris, you know the squeaky wheel gets the grease,
Yeah, they
and
will
that's what
don't
it's
always
about.
be squeaky though. It doesn't always be
People
squeaky.
show up. People
Hmm.
know
They show up. They show
where
up.
they show up. They know when the meetings are. They know where they join in force.
Yeah.
They come, they know what to say, and they have
Mhm.
these other resources in their favor.
Well, guess
The
what, Miss
first one
Travis?
being race,
Mhm.
in their favor, and they have money in their favor, and they have people who are in these professions in their favor. So they have
Mhm.
so much in their favor, they can pretty much get what they want as long as it doesn't cost somebody else too much of their own money.
Yes, ma'am.
But yeah, we just have a lot to do in our neighborhood. But first of all, we need to be informed,
Mhm.
because you can't step into any meeting about any situation misinformed
Yes, ma'am.
or disinformed. You have to
I
know exactly what you're talking about, what you're speaking to,
I be knowing stuff.
what it
I
is about,
still
what questions I need to ask,
I try to be
what
quiet.
questions I need to ask. It's just a lot that you have to have. And I'm
Yes,
not
ma'am.
saying when people go that everybody has to speak, but have a spokesperson
Mhm.
who knows what he or she is talking about, can answer and ask the question, but you
Mhm.
have a force behind you, and a show of force. And that sometimes get the ball rolling. Okay, thank you so much, Miss S. Hi, Ari. Okay, I just have my grandson just got in the car.
Hey,
Let me see.
grandson.
Say hello, Chris and Miss Rita. And who else is on here?
That's
Miss
it.
Rita and who else? That's it,
Facebook.
the three of us.
Yep.
Oh,
Facebook
and
Hey,
on.
Faith. Okay. So yes, Chris, and thank you for the conversation. It was a good interaction today. We
Yes,
learned a
ma'am.
lot. And yes, Rita and I and others, I'm sure in the um other residents, we certainly do need funding for our I do,
yes.
and I know Rita
Yes, ma'am.
does. We just need funding, and you know what, and funding can go beyond gardening. So many people in our
Mhm.
neighborhoods need so much assistance that we can bring to them, but it
Mhm.
has to call, and things are not free,
Yeah.
Yes,
but there
ma'am.
are some things that we can do a lot more to improve the look of our
Mhm.
neighborhoods. One thing,
Mhm.
to improve the look, because I think a good looking neighborhood helps to deter crime. I really do. I think
Yes,
so. A
ma'am.
clean neighborhood helps to deter crime. So if we're gonna fight crime, we have to
Mhm.
start with cleanliness, in my opinion.
Yes,
Cleanliness.
ma'am. Cleanliness
Okay,
is
darling. Okay,
godliness.
thank you,
Let me
dears.
say
I
this for you
appreciate you
leave, Miss
all.
Travis, because
I'm so
everything you just
uh-huh.
said was exactly why this organization exists. It's exactly why the Resident
That's
Leader
right.
program
And I
exists,
appreciate it.
And
I'm glad I got involved with NBN when it was brought to me. I'm going like, NBN, what's NBN? But now I know what it is. It's a good organization. I'm glad I was enlightened about it. I met some
yes,
good
ma'am.
people and with some good issues, solutions. And this is what we need, especially in our Black neighborhoods. We just need this. This is for the
Yes, ma'am.
health and the livelihood and survival
Hmm.
of us and our children. And I can't speak enough that people have to really be, we got to be for the children. We not for ourselves. We have to be for our children. We have to have, we have to fight for their survival. And that's what it's about. And we have to teach, we have to teach, we have to teach. And we have to show. Not only do we have to teach, but I always say, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one. I can go to church all day and hear a sermon. But unless that speaker is doing what he or she is saying, I
Mm,
don't want to hear a sermon. Show
mm.
me.
I know that's right.
Show me. And I'm not even from Missouri. You know, the show me state.
Yes,
And I'm not
ma'am.
even from Missouri.
Hey,
Show
I'm
me.
with you.
Show me your works, your action.
I'm
Show me what
100%
you can
with you.
do. Don't tell me. That's
1000%.
talk is cheap.
Hmm.
But anyway, I love you guys, and I'm off to the other to Winston-Salem. I'm leaving Clemens now, and
Hmm.
as soon as I get home, I will email that.
Yes, ma'am.
So you and
Okay.
Rita, thanks for listening. I know I talk sometimes too much,
No, you
but I'm
didn't.
trying
No,
to make
you're
a point,
fine.
and I'm trying to steer up the. I'm just trying to keep the conversation going because sometimes I know we have guests,
I
and
appreciate it. I appreciate all
we
y'all.
have to, we want to have a good, discussion when we do have guests that we want
Yes,
to get
ma'am.
involved. And some people
Absolutely.
just don't talk as much as I talk. But anyway, but they have a lot to say. Like Rita doesn't do as much talking as I, but when she speaks, she has a lot to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, dear.
Thank you
Okay,
so
thank you
much,
so
Miss
much.
Travis.
Thank you.
And
Y'all have
I'll
a good
send it
day.
to you as soon as I
You
get
too.
home, okay?
All of y'all. Y'all
Okay.
take care.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Oh, Chris,
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more thing. I just thought about it, the badges. Have you found
Yeah.
out anything about the badges?
Yeah. So we will be doing badges.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't tell you when they'll be in. I can't tell you when you're gonna get them. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, we discussed it in the last meeting. We're gonna do that.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All right.
much, Miss Millington.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the organization times. It enlightens and gives me a lot of information and so
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate all that you do.
Yeah. So,
And
and I had one other thing I wanted to tell you. There was a man that came through our block the other day, and he, I don't know where my card is, but he wants to help with, his last name is Fleming. He was looking around in our neighborhood to find out how he can be able to help the community. But when I find that card, I don't know what I did with it.
older or younger?
He was an older man.
You know, there's Fleming Elamine. That wasn't him.
It was a guy, yeah,
You
an
know,
older guy.
our county commissioner was Mr. Fleming. I don't know. That's
He was from Code of Enforcement.
Code of Enforcement. That's probably not him.
Yes.
I can't find my
And
pen. I'm gonna put it in my phone.
yeah, his name was Paul Fuller.
Paul Fuller.
And on the back of the card, it had Marla Newman. She is a community development director.
Marla Newman. And he wanted to help your community do what?
To help do something in our community, make it help the community do something different with it. He was taking pictures of the lot that I had talked to you about the playground.
Yeah. So was he sent to you basically from some of those conversations you had?
No, he just was driving through the block and taking pictures.
Yeah. Code of Enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Is this city or county? Do you know?
He is, it says here on the card, state code enforcement.
State.
But yeah, state code enforcement. Paul Fuller is a code enforcement officer.
That's really interesting.
And on the back of the card, it says City of Winston-Salem, Miss Marla Newman that I just told you about. She is a community development director.
Director? He had to be sent there. He didn't just randomly go.
I guess I don't know, but I saw him taking pictures and stuff, and I was like, okay. He gave me his card and everything.
Marla Newman, Community Development Director. I guess she is one of them. Maybe she can be reached out to. And so you did already reach out to people about that, though. I know you say you talked to House Representative, right?
Yes,
Did you talk to anyone else about it?
I spoke with, Mr. Rod Ring he has retired. So now Jeff Fansler is the director of the city as well.
Director of the city in what capacity?
In the transportation and community. He's taking over Rod Ring's position.
Is he interim or is he permanent? Do you know? Because I remember I went up there and it was in flux when I went up there.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't horrible. It was just like I tried to get some information about traffic calming, and it was just weird how it was just how the treatment was like there was confusion, and I was just like, "What's going on here?" But what I realized was later I found out when I went to the city council meeting, all that you're saying now. And I'm like, okay, that's why it was like that.
Yeah. So It's anything that I have, I
Jeff
just
Chancellor.
send it, yeah, I just send it to Fansler.
Okay, so you sent him the yard, the pictures,
Yes.
the one that's the one you went to park at, right? And so, why would the state code of enforcement be over there though? Because I mean, I don't think it's state property.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe eminent domain. That's the one beside the young lady's house, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Maybe Marla might be a good person to call to just, I
Okay.
guess, figure out what's going on. That's where I would
Okay.
start.
Okay. But yeah, I have her card. See the card right here. That's
Mhm.
and then on the
And
back, it has,
that's a real two-part card.
yes.
I ain't never see a card with two. I mean, I thought he wrote on it.
Oh no, he gave it to me. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
And I'm gonna get in contact with him and see, whatever else we can be able to get
Yes,
to get
ma'am.
help. Yeah.
Well, you keep me updated. If you need me for anything, let me know.
Okay, I will.
And also keep me updated on the traffic calming work
Yeah.
y'all doing.
Yes. Also, March 23rd, I think it's 6:30 Power Up. We're supposed to get back with them together, but I'll let you know. But they said March the 23rd. So
I
I
know
will
they
let you know.
just there's something that his name isn't Andrew, is it? The North Carolina League of Conservative Voters. He's with Power Up. They got 3 different entities. So it's the one that is one of them. Is it Andrew? I don't know. I'm gonna be involved with something they're doing. I think that's next week though. So it could
Okay.
be the 23rd, but all my dates is yeah.
Yeah.
See, I spilled my coffee earlier, so
Yeah.
I got a lot going on, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. But I just wanted to let you know about that, and I will get more information because I'm also with Cena, so we're trying to plan another fall festival, or maybe doing spring festival, but it September the 29th, I think, or I think it's the 29th, but I'll let you know about that because we're in the process of doing a whole lot of stuff.
I like y'all festivals. Y'all do a good job over there.
So yeah, so that was all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Miss Millington.
Thank you. Also, Chris, you have a good day, okay?
Absolutely. Tell your husband I asked about him, and you guys
I
take care.
will. I will. Have a good day.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
Bye-bye.